Hi, class. It is Saturday morning, and this is the last day I'll be allowed to get on campus. So I'm going to see if I can get most of Chapter 10, if not all of it done. That way I can not only show you the document camera, which is helpful to you, and send you the notes, but I'll also later on be able to show you the TVM solver easier than I can do it at home. So that's what the plan is. So we're going to do 10.1, which is on percents. All right? And I think I should probably be able to get that done in one thing. Most of you are familiar with percents already because we've been using them when we talked about probabilities. But we'll just do a few things real quick. How do you change a percent to a decimal? How do you change a decimal to a percent? And how do you change a fraction to a percent? And then, of course, how do you change a percent to a fraction? And I'm going to do those fairly quick. You can pause me, you can back me up as you see fit to do so. So changing a percent to a decimal, 15%. Change that to a decimal, the decimal point moves two places left. So that is 0.15. Now, a lot of times students start trying to memorize things and they'll go, okay, if there's not a decimal, move it to the left. No, if it's a percent, move it to the left. So even if it's 0.3%, then it would become 0.003. There's a question like that on your test for chapter 10, and it's very, very commonly missed. Changing a decimal to a percent is just the reverse. So if I said 0.125, often written 0.125, that's 12.5%. If I said 0.0008, that is equal to 0.08%. By the way, if you do not put the percent symbol on it when it is a percent, it is wrong, because then you would be saying 0.125 is equal to 12.5. You didn't put the percent symbol on it. You just said 0.125 is equal to 12.5. Clearly not true. So you have to put the percent symbol on it. So changing a fraction to a percent. Changing a fraction to percent, just put it in your calculator as 3 divided by 4. It'll come up as a decimal. Then change your decimal to a percent, 75%. Okay? So if I said 1/80th, take your calculator and do 1 divided by 80, and you will get 0.0125, 0.0125, which is equal to 1.25%. Changing a percent to a fraction, if you were given a percent, like 9%, to change that to a fraction, just write it over 100. And if it's possible to reduce it, reduce it. That one's not reducible. But if I said 15%, that would be 15 over 100. And that would be reducible to 3 over 20. Okay? If it already has a fraction in it, like 8.5%, put that 1/2 in your calculator, 1 divided by 2. It'll come up as 8.5%. Then that would be 8.5 over 100. Just divide that in your calculator and ask it to change it back to another fraction. So that would work out fine. You won't see those very often, and you won't see them on the exam. So they show up in their homework a little bit. Percents, by the way, means out of 100. So if you've been watching the news lately, they've been talking a lot about COVID-19 and how dangerous it is. And I have heard everything from 1% to 2.5% of the people who get the virus will die from the virus. That means if it's 2.5%, that basically means 2.5 people out of 100, or 25 people out of every 1,000 who get the disease die for the disease. I have been watching the news and writing down the numbers, and frankly, I think it's closer to 5 to 10%. So, and the reason I think that is when I see the numbers, it shows the number of people who died, the number of people who have contracted the disease, and it does come out to be about 2.5%, but the disease doesn't hit its peak for 15 days. So that means the people who have been diagnosed with the disease who are new to the disease haven't had the opportunity to get that sick yet. Don't want to alarm you. I'm just talking about the numbers here. Keep yourself safe. The only time I go out is to come here, to go to the grocery store, and to walk my dogs. And I try and maintain at least 6 to 10 feet of distance from anybody I see while walking. I recommend you do the same. All right. All right. So when you're dealing with percent, your basic percent statement will say percent of the base is the result. They won't use those words, but to give you an idea of what that means, if I say there is an 8% tax, sales tax, but 8% of what? 8% of the total purchase is the tax. So that would be 8, let me write that here in a millimeter, 8% of your purchase is the tax. Okay, so that would be a common percent statement. If I said I'm going to give you a 5% raise, 5% of your current income is the raise. If I said I'm giving you a 20% discount, 20% of the original price is the price reduction. So now, what do you do with that? Well, the word of will typically convert to a time sign, and the word is will convert to an equal sign. So if I said I was going to give you a 5% raise and you're making $30,000 a year, 0.05 times $30,000 is the raise. So 0.05 times 30,000, I can do that on a calculator, just do 0.05 times 30,000, and that is a $1,500 pay increase. Likewise, right now, there's a lot of people who are complaining about loss of income. So let's say you have a job and you even are keeping your job, but your overtime went away. And your boss, you went to your boss and said, how much is that going to affect me? And he says, well, based on your previous overtime, that's going to drop your income about 12%. So 12% of your income is from overtime. And so if you were making $30,000 a year, 0.12 times $30,000 is what your overtime pay was. And so you could actually calculate what was your overtime pay. And that would be 0.12 times 30,000, and that would be 3,600. That is the money you're no longer going to earn because you're no longer going to be able to work overtime. So that's a nice thing to know, where you would use percents. Um, so when we're looking at numbers, we can look at that. Now, they're asking me to calculate the percent. So for instance, where am I getting my numbers about the death toll from the coronavirus? Well, one of the numbers I saw in the news the other day was a certain area, it might have been Phoenix at the time, there were 680 cases of COVID 19, and there was 40 deaths. So I'm going to write this as a question. 40 is what percent of the 680 cases? So I wrote that as a sentence. So when you're watching the news and you see how many cases there are in an area and how many deaths, you can set it up just like that. 40 is what percent? So we write that as an equation. 40 equals X, I don't know that, of, which is a time sign, 680. To find X, I'm going to have to take both sides and divide by 680. I'm going to divide by 680 on the left. I'm going to divide by 680 on the right. So 40 divided by 680 is equal to 0.058, actually runs to 0.059, is equal to X, which is 5.9%. So the death rate in this particular area was 5.9%, not the 2 and even 1% that I've heard some people talking about. All right, I want to do one other thing with that, so I think I'll make a second video.